Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is John Cold, and you're listening to History Resonance Radio. Tonight, we bring you a story that is reshaping the world before our very eyes. For nearly 70 years, the Soviet Union stood as one of the most powerful nations on Earth. Stretching across 11 time zones and controlling vast territories from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Ocean, it was a superpower whose influence reached every corner of the globe. Its military was immense. Its political ideology shaped the lives of hundreds of millions. Its rivalry with the United States defined much of the 20th century. For decades, the world seemed divided into two opposing camps, East and West, capitalism and communism, NATO and the Warsaw Pact. The Cold War influenced wars, elections, economies, and even the race to space. Few could imagine a world without the Soviet Union, and yet tonight, that world is emerging. The events unfolding in Moscow may mark the end of an era that has defined generations. To understand how we arrived at this historic moment, we must look back several years. By the 1980s, serious problems had begun to appear within the Soviet system. The economy was slowing. Factories struggled to meet production goals. Store shelves often lacked basic consumer goods. Long lines became a common sight. Many citizens began questioning whether the system could continue unchanged. At the same time, the Soviet Union was spending enormous resources maintaining military parity with the West. The burden was becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. In 1985, a new leader came to power. He promised reform. He spoke of openness and restructuring. His goal was not to destroy the Soviet Union, but to save it. Yet history often moves in unexpected ways. The reforms that were meant to strengthen the system instead exposed weaknesses that had been hidden for decades. Citizens gained greater freedom to discuss problems openly. Journalists investigated issues that previously could not be mentioned. People began asking difficult questions, questions about the economy, questions about political freedom, questions about the future. Across Eastern Europe, similar movements were gaining momentum. Governments that had once appeared permanent suddenly looked vulnerable. One by one, communist regimes throughout Eastern Europe began collapsing. And then came one of the most symbolic moments of the century. The Berlin Wall fell, crowds celebrated, families reunited. The image was broadcast around the world. For many observers, it seemed clear that the old order was beginning to crumble. Yet even then, few expected the Soviet Union itself to disappear. As tensions continued to rise, demands for greater independence emerged throughout the republics that made up the Soviet state. National movements grew stronger. Citizens began imagining futures outside Soviet control. Tonight, those pressures appear to have reached their breaking point. For more on the atmosphere in Moscow, we go now to our correspondent Katie. Katie, what are you seeing?
Thank you, John. The mood here in Moscow is unlike anything I have witnessed before. People are gathering in public squares, discussing events with a mixture of excitement, uncertainty, and concern. Some see the changes as long overdue. Others fear what may come next. For many citizens, the Soviet Union has been a constant presence throughout their entire lives. They grew up under it, worked under it, built families under it. The possibility that it could cease to exist would have seemed unimaginable only a few years ago. Yet that possibility is now becoming reality. Government institutions are struggling to maintain authority. Several republics have already declared their intentions to pursue independence. Across the city, conversations focus on what tomorrow might look like. No one seems entirely certain, but nearly everyone agrees that history is being made. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Katie. Indeed, uncertainty is everywhere. As the year 1991 progressed, the crisis deepened. The Soviet economy continued to deteriorate. Political disagreements intensified. The central government found itself increasingly unable to control events. Then came a dramatic turning point. In August, hardline officials attempted to seize power. They feared the Soviet Union was slipping away. Determined to preserve the existing system, they launched what would become known as the August Coup. Tanks appeared in Moscow. The world watched anxiously. Many feared violence, many feared civil conflict, yet something unexpected happened. Ordinary citizens poured into the streets. Crowds gathered around government buildings. Barricades were erected. Thousands stood together in opposition to the coup. One image quickly became iconic: a political leader standing atop a tank addressing the crowd and calling for resistance. The attempted takeover began to unravel. Within days, the coup collapsed. Its failure dramatically weakened the authority of the Soviet government. From that moment onward, the momentum seemed impossible to stop. Republic after republic moved toward independence. The idea of a united Soviet Union was fading rapidly. What had once seemed permanent now appeared fragile. The foundations of the superpower were crumbling, and now new developments are arriving from Moscow. We return to Katie. Katie, what is happening at this hour?
John, events are moving quickly. Officials are now confirming what many observers believed impossible only months ago. The leaders of several Soviet republics have agreed that the Union can no longer continue in its current form. Meetings and negotiations have accelerated throughout recent weeks. The conclusion appears unavoidable. The Soviet Union is effectively coming to an end. Here in Moscow, reactions remain mixed. Some citizens are celebrating newfound freedoms and opportunities. Others are reflecting on the loss of a nation that played a central role in their identities. There is pride, there is uncertainty, there is hope, and there is concern. One thing is unmistakable: the world that existed yesterday is disappearing. A new chapter is beginning. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Katie. Tonight we are witnessing one of the most significant political transformations in modern history. A nation that once launched the first satellite into space, a nation that sent the first human into orbit, a nation that stood at the center of global affairs for nearly 7 decades. That nation is now passing into history. The consequences will be felt far beyond Moscow, across Europe, across Asia, across the Americas. Governments, businesses, militaries, and ordinary citizens are all attempting to understand what comes next. The Cold War, which shaped international relations for generations, is drawing to a close. The future remains uncertain. Challenges undoubtedly lie ahead. But tonight marks the end of an extraordinary chapter in human history. Few events have altered the global landscape so dramatically. Fewer still have unfolded with such speed. For millions of people, this is not merely a political story. It is a personal one. It is the end of a country they have known their entire lives. And for the rest of the world, it is the beginning of a new era. This is John Cold for History Resonance Radio. Thank you for joining us during this historic broadcast. Good night.